novel translated into English. A big round of applause for our author, Eric Reinhardt. We're also joined today by Eric's translator, Isa Poncho. I hope I got your name right, Isa. She's going to help us with the English translations of the passages that Eric is going to read out from. Now, before we start, I just want to tell you that while I was taking the flight from Bangalore to Colombo, I got an email from a friend of mine who knew that I was going to come to the festival, and she said, "Are you ready for Colomboscoping?" Yeah, so the name of the festival already seems to have become a verb, which is a good sign, which means it's well accepted. So yes, Kerry, Eric, and I are all ready for some Colomboscoping, and we'd be delighted if you could join us. What are we going to do in this session? In this session, we are going to look at the dark side of the literary characters in the novels of Kerry and Eric. We're going to look at the cities that they inhabit, the passions that drive them, and also the conflicts that shape them. So I'm going to start off with Kerry. Kerry, your novel Pau is a saga of domestic violence and gangland strife set against the backdrop of post-war Jamaican politics. Tell us a little bit about the novel and its genesis before we go into deeper matters.
Well, it's not as sophisticated as I think people like to imagine after the event. It was just and the strange life that we had when I was a kid in Kingston, and so I thought I'd reinvent him, and that's how Pau came into being. It's a reinvention of my father. It's kind of, I always say it's my father half remembered and half imagined, because what happened is that as an adult, in the book, I'm making sense of some of the things that I witnessed as a child that, of course, may or may not be true. The sense I've made of them all these years later may not be actually what was happening, but it created enough of an imagination. And for Jamaican, because I love Jamaica and because Jamaica during that time was changing, and the book is set between 1938 and the 80s. So basically from 1938, which was when we had all the disturbances across the Caribbean islands about unemployment and poor conditions, and the establishment of the first national political party in Jamaica, the People's National Party, up until the second Michael Madley administration. So it takes that in that political period when a lot of change happened in Jamaica. And we were talking earlier about how the characters change, because obviously as life is changing, not just in the city of Kingston, but in the whole of Jamaica, then the characters and life must change, especially Pau's, because obviously he's making a living doing all sorts of things that he shouldn't be doing. And as the economy changes, he has to be more creative about how he's able to make money.
So is one of the characters in the novel close to how your father was in real life? I'm curious to know, is one of the characters based on your father in a big way?
Well, Pau is sort of, yeah, I mean, it's sort of Pau. Although, interestingly, when my sister read the draft, she said she found it very confusing because she kept reading the book thinking it was a history of our family and realized she didn't recognize any of the things in it. So it's kind of, she thinks I romanticize my father very much in the book, and that's probably true.
Mm-hmm. Eric, your novel, The Victoria System, speaking of the novel, one of the reviews that I read said, "Finally a sexy book written by someone who would appear to have had sex." Tell us a little bit more about the book, please.
Can you repeat like the end?
The quote said, "Finally a sexy book written by someone who would appear to have had sex."
Un livre, que finalement c'est un livre à propos du sexe où on voit que l'auteur a eu des expériences sexuelles.
Ah. Who said that?
This was Dazed Digital Bold, a magazine called Dazed Digital Bold, and that was the funniest one-line summary I found, and I thought I'd open the reference to your book with that.
And so what is the question, exactly?
Tell us a little bit about the Victoria
David,
system.
And I don't know Victoria. But
so my question is that you talk a little bit about the genesis of the Victoria system. Just set the context for the audience about what the book is about. I know you spoke about it yesterday already, but tell us a little bit about the book and then we'll dive deeper into it.
C'est l'histoire d'un homme, David, 40 ans,
It's a story of a man, David, 40 years old,
qui est directeur de travaux sur une tour, un gratte-ciel, dans un quartier de Paris qui s'appelle La Défense.
who is a head construction manager in a tower in Paris, in a district called La Défense Business District.
Et il subit une pression absolument considérable dans son travail parce que la tour doit être achevée à une date donnée et elle a beaucoup de retard.
So he's under a huge pressure while working because he needs to do it on time, and if there's some delays, he has some big issues.
Et cet homme est marié, il a des enfants.
This man is married and he has children.
Et il rencontre un jour par hasard dans la rue une femme
And once he met a woman in the street
qui le fascine, il l'aborde et ils vont devenir tous les deux amants et maîtresses de manière très passionnelle.
So she fascinates him, and so he approaches her, and they're going to become lovers, and very passionately.
Et cette femme s'appelle Victoria, elle habite à Londres.
Victoria, the woman's name is Victoria, and she's living in London.
Et elle est directrice des ressources humaines d'une multinationale anglaise, une entreprise très importante.
She's a head manager of human resources in a multinational company.
Et c'est une femme qui est ultra-libérale.
And she's a woman who is very ultra liberal.
Qui a beaucoup de pouvoir, qui aime le pouvoir et l'argent.
And she has a lot of power. She loves power and money.
Qui est très efficace et très accomplie dans sa vie professionnelle.
She's very efficient and accomplished in her professional life.
Et tout ça fascine le narrateur du roman, David.
And all of this fascinates David, like the narrator of the book.
D'autant plus qu'elle est aussi libre dans sa vie intime, amoureuse et sexuelle qu'elle peut l'être dans sa vie professionnelle, avec le même libéralisme, cette même soif de plaisir qu'elle peut avoir dans sa vie professionnelle, de profit et d'argent.
And is much more. Is more fascinated, even because like Victoria is as liberated in a professional life as in a intimate life, because she's very passionate and very free in her sexual practices.
Le seul point d'ombre entre eux, c'est qu'il y a une réelle opposition idéologique et politique.
The only shadow which is upon like their couple is their ideological gap and political gap.
Voilà. Et donc l'histoire du livre, c'est comment ils vont s'opposer idéologiquement et même se combattre.
And the story of the book is how they're gonna fight ideologically speaking, and how.
Et s'entraîner l'un l'autre à travers leurs fantasmes très loin.
And they're going further and further into their fantasies.
Et dans leur vie sexuelle et passionnelle.
And in their sexual life and a passionate life.
Se révélant l'un à l'autre leurs fantasmes les plus inavouables.
And they are, during the book, revealing themselves, their fantasies, and
jusqu'à ce que ça devienne assez périlleux.
Until it become kind of dangerous and period.
You know, I hate to propagate stereotypes, but following a woman through the streets of Paris and inviting her to become your lover sounds like a distinctly French thing to do. Thank you very much. Eric. Now, the interesting thing that I found about both books is that they both begin with acts of violence or allusions to them at some level. In Pao, we have Gloria, who comes in to young Pao and talks about her sister having been assaulted by a white sailor boy. Gloria also begins with an act of violence. And if you look at the Victoria system, it starts with an act of stalking, which in itself is an act of violence against a woman. So when I read the three books that we just talked about, Pao, Gloria, and the Victoria system, I sense that violence, whether it's explicit or subtle, or in the case of the Victoria system, sexual, is at the heart of the novels. Do you want to comment on that, Kerry?
I don't think so. The violence isn't at the heart of the novels for me, I don't think. I think what's at the heart of the novels, maybe I'll think of them separately. If I think about Pao, what's at the heart of the novel, they're both the same thing. But at the heart of both of the novels is about people who are trying to make sense of the circumstances in which they find themselves and trying to make sense of a life and trying to be or become the people that they want to be or feel that they are intrinsically. And I think both of the novels, the violence comes in because they live in violent times. So for Pao, he lives in violent times and through a time when Jamaica is going through, people know Jamaica went through a lot of violence during the time that the book is set. So he's living through violent times and also making a living being the godfather because he becomes the godfather of Chinatown. He lands in Kingston, Jamaica as a 14-year-old Chinese boy and then grows up to become the godfather of Chinatown. So he is living a violent life in violent times. But to me, the book isn't, at the heart of the book isn't violence. At the heart of the book is Pao trying to make sense of himself in that set of circumstances. And Gloria, I'm going to read from the beginning of Gloria. And you kind of said about a violent act at the beginning of Gloria. And although Gloria begins with a violent act, again, it's the same thing. It's a young woman trying to make sense of, or trying to save herself actually in the beginning from a violent situation. And so the violence in Gloria's life is violence that she finds herself being the target of in different ways, the target of that violence. And as a young black woman in the Jamaica of that time, trying to figure out how she can create a life for herself and how she can create a sense of herself in the circumstances in which she finds herself, which are violent.
Would you like to read from Gloria, following which we will ask Eric to read from the Victoria system?
This is actually Gloria leaving the country. The second reading will be Gloria in the city. So this is how the book begins. This is how Gloria leaves the country and makes her way to Kingston, or why. It's 1938, and the book Gloria has a number of little sayings at various chapters. It begins 1938, and it says, "I hear a sigh across the earth," and this is how it begins. "I grab a piece of wood and I hit him, and I hit him, and I hit him. And all I can hear is the dull thud, like when you bash open a ripe watermelon and the juice splash all over you. And then I hear Marcia screaming as she's trying to get out from under him. She's shoving him off of her, but my arm is still moving because all I can think about is how he done it to me. And how his hands so rough, everywhere he holding me down. And how the kaya mattress stick me in the back as I lay there staring up at the rusty old corrugated zinc roof he got on this shack. And how it's a hot in here, and how the smell of him, the thick sour sweat of him, make my stomach turn and make me want to heave. But I just lay there like a piece of old board until it was done. That is what I am thinking while my arm is swinging and swinging, till Marcia grabbed me and we run out of his stinking pit into the air and the rain. We run past a hole in the ground where we burn in the wood to make the coal and into the trees, through the mango and breadfruit and banana and pear. And we just tearing past everything. We cut through the cane field And we run through the bush, past branches that catch your arm and roots that catch your foot. Down, down, till we make it to the river. And that is when I realized I still got the piece of wood in my hand. So I smash it. I find a big rock and I smash it and I pull it and tear it till there was nothing left but twigs and splinters and dust. And I throw the bits into the river. And then I jump in after them because the blood is running all over me like rain, making a little river down my face and all over my hands and soaking into my frock. And that is when it stopped raining. I said to Marcia to get in and wash herself, to take off the frocks, and we rub them under the water and wring them out and bash them on a rock and rinse them some more. And then I tell her to make sure she do between her legs as well. And she said to me, him didn't do nothing to me, you know. Him just jump on top of me when you bust through the door. It no matter, wash away what him intend to do to you. We lay out the frocks to dry on a big rock in the sun. And I tell Marcia we must go hide behind a bush till the clothes dry. I don't want nobody coming down here to find themselves two young girls all naked, waiting to tempt their nastiness.
Thank you very much. Eric, could you read for us, please?
J'ai préparé pendant 3 heures la première phrase que j'ai osé lui dire. Victoria n'est pas une femme qu'un inconnu peut aborder sans qu'elle se sente insultée. L'amorce serait cruciale. Je n'aurai que cette seule phrase et un unique regard pour obtenir qu'elle me pardonne et qu'elle s'immobilise. Je venais d'acheter une peluche si imposante que sa longue queue incurvée dépassait du sac plastique où la caissière l'avait glissée. Cet appendice pouvait suggérer l'idée que je transportais un point d'interrogation en fourrure synthétique. Je regrettais de ne pas m'être informé du nom de l'animal, car Vivienne allait sans doute s'en enquérir. Qu'est-ce que c'est ? Regarde sa queue comme elle est grosse et ses jolies moustaches, touche. Mais je n'avais pas eu la présence d'esprit d'interroger la vendeuse. J'ai emprunté l'escalator pour descendre au niveau 0 et rejoindre le parking où j'avais laissé ma voiture. Vivienne est la plus jeune de mes 2 filles. On devait fêter ce soir-là l'anniversaire de ses 5 ans. Quel est le nom de l'animal que je transporte ? Ce n'est ni un castor, ni une marmotte, ni une belette, ni un raton laveur, mais quelque chose apparenté dont on peut supposer qu'il vit sur la terre ferme sans avoir renoncé au plaisir de se baigner. S'endortit dans les entrailles du sol comme la taupe, ou enfoui dans des broussailles comme le lapin, ou agrippé à une branche d'arbre comme l'écureuil. J'entr'ouvre le sac plastique pour vérifier si les pattes de l'animal sont palmées ou griffues. L'escalator m'a déposé au niveau 0. Je m'engage dans l'allée principale quand une silhouette attire mon attention. Elle est de dos, devant une boutique de vêtements et examine des articles exposés dans la vitrine. Cette femme me plaît. L'atmosphère qui en émane, l'austérité de ses vêtements, son port de tête et la manière dont elle se tient. Un rayonnement de reine. Je m'arrête et la regarde. Une autorité. Il y avait longtemps que je n'avais pas éprouvé une telle attirance pour une femme croisée par hasard. Elle se déplace le long de la vitrine et s'immobilise à nouveau. Prospérité et élégance. J'ai le sentiment qu'elle s'attarde par moments dans le reflet de son visage. Cheveux massifs, ondulés, corpulente, une poitrine volumineuse. Je la vois qui s'interroge du regard. Elle doit avoir à peu près ma taille, un peu plus d'1,80 m. Elle consulte une fois de plus son bracelet-montre. Elle examine avec une minutie indifférente. C'est tout du moins ce que suggère son attitude alternativement irritée et rêveuse. Une robe du soir minimaliste, installée sur un mannequin décapité. Aurait-elle un rendez-vous ?
Okay, other translation. I spent 3 hours preparing the first words I dared speak to her. Victoria is not the kind of woman a stranger can approach without her feeling insulted. The first few seconds would be crucial. I would only have one phrase, one look in her eyes to persuade her to forgive me and to stop walking. I just bought a cuddly toy so large that its long bendy tail poked out of the plastic bag that the shopkeeper had put it in, and this appendage made it look as though I were carrying a fake fur question mark. I regretted not having found out what kind of animal it was, because Vivienne would be bound to ask, "What is it? Look how big its tail is, and what pretty whiskers. Here, touch it." But I had lacked the presence of mind to question the sales assistant. I took the escalator down to the ground floor, heading towards the car park where I'd left my car. Vivienne is a younger of my two daughters. We were supposed to be celebrating her 5th birthday that evening. "What is the name of this animal I'm carrying? It's not a beaver, it's not a marmot or a weasel or a raccoon, but it's something along those lines. The sort of animal that you imagine lives on dry land, but without having given up the pleasures of bathing. Does it sleep buried in the ground like a mole, or nestled in the undergrowth like a rabbit, or gripping a tree branch like a squirrel?" I opened the plastic bag to check whether the animal paws are webbed or clawed. The escalator deposits me on the ground floor, and I am joining the main aisle when my attention is drawn to a woman's figure. She stands in front of a closed shop with her back to me, looking at the items displayed in the window. I like this woman, her aura, her austerity, the austerity of her clothes, the way she holds her head, the way she stands. I stop and watch her. She has a queenly radiance, an authority. It is a long time since I was so attracted to a woman encountered by chance. She moves along the window, then stops again. Prosperity and elegance. I have the feeling that her gaze lingers for a moment on the reflection of her face. Her hair is thick and wavy, her body voluptuous and full-chested. I watch her examine herself. She must be more or less the same height as me, just under 6 foot. She checks her wristwatch again. With meticulous indifference, she studies an evening dress worn by a headless mannequin. That, at least, is the attitude suggested by her expression, which alternates between irritation and dreaminess. Perhaps she was supposed to be meeting someone. Much later, she told me the truth about her situation and why she was hanging around outside a clothes shop that day. I like her calves, rounded and firm, held tall by the heels of her shoes. They eroticize her presence. Looking at them makes me want to make love to her. She makes a phone call and moves away from the window. She listens more than she speaks. There are no clues as to whether this conversation is professional or personal, whether the words she is hearing are upsetting or pleasurable, whether the person with whom she seems to be in discussion is a man or a woman. Perhaps she's checking her voicemail. I watch as pensive and absorbed she drifts slowly towards me, and at the moment when we are about to bump into each other, she throws me a lively glance. In this glance, I detect, in response to my face, my eyes, my fascinated and admiring gaze, a flash of surprise and discreet approval. I turn back, hoping she'll turn back too, and that she'll be smiling. But I see her wander on in silence, moving over the tiled floor with a tense concentration that has an air of finality.
Thank you very much. You know, Eric, apart from being a very sexy novel about what one reviewer called hot sex and high heels, The Victorious System is also a novel about the conflict between characters and ideas. For instance, this is the love story of a left-wing idealist and a right-wing capitalist. You alluded to that in your conversation yesterday at Colomboscope. And when you put a left-wing idealist and a right-wing capitalist together, they are going to be sparks. And I don't just mean the sexual sparks. What is it about this kind of coming together of characters that that inspired you to put together these characters?
En fait, le monde d'aujourd'hui me paraît de plus en plus complexe et incompréhensible, et pour cette raison fascinant.
Indeed, like the world where we live in, the contemporary world, can seem more and more complex and ununderstandable. And what is fascinating?
Je pense qu'on en est à un moment de l'histoire de l'humanité où personne ne peut prédire ce que sera le monde dans 10 ou 20 ans.
I think we are in a moment in humanity history where we can't predict what will what will be after, what the world is gonna be later.
On a le sentiment de vivre une époque particulièrement dangereuse.
Like we have the feeling to live a particularly dangerous period.
Et que le monde est dans une sorte de fuite en avant.
And that the world is like headlong, in a headlong rush, is running away.
Sans que personne ne se pose vraiment les bonnes questions, ou en tout cas on se pose des questions. Le monde continue à tourner et il ne s'arrête pas pour réfléchir à son devenir.
Like without anyone to question. Well, it's not like they're not questioning, but they're not stopping the world to really think about it and think how we can change it.
Et on est beaucoup à avoir cette intuition que les choses ne peuvent que mal se terminer.
And we are many to have this intuition that it just can finish badly.
On l'a vu avec la crise des subprimes, par exemple, qui a été... on n'est pas passé pas très loin quand même d'une catastrophe planétaire.
We could see it with the subprimes crisis, the financial crisis, where we were just very near to a very big catastrophe.
Ce qui se passe avec les dettes souveraines, les problèmes de la Grèce, c'est des choses qui sont vraiment très préoccupantes et dont on voit comment elles très vite.
This is what is happening with sovereign debt and issues in Greece and what was that?
Quoi? Je sais pas. Et donc, on peut tous se demander quelle est la voie à suivre.
And we can all wonder what is the road to follow. What is
Quelle est l'attitude à adopter par rapport à cette réalité de plus en plus complexe?
What is the attitude to adopt in this more and more complex reality?
Est-ce que même le concept de vérité d'un point de vue sur cette réalité a encore du sens?
And we can wonder if, like, the concept of truth is adapted to the reality where we live in.
Ou alors on doit s'adapter aux situations telles qu'elles se présentent et faire en sorte qu'on s'en sorte le mieux possible?
Or should we just adapt to situation we are in and see what happens?
Est-ce qu'il faut être ultra-libéral et compter, faire confiance à l'homme et laisser les choses se faire telles qu'elles doivent se faire?
So should we be like ultra-liberal, have some confidence in human and just let things happen as they do?
Ou au contraire, se protéger et tout réglementer de la manière la plus ferme possible pour empêcher l'homme de se détruire?
Or in the contrary, should we just rule everything, control everything to protect ourselves?
Je simplifie un peu parce que c'est compliqué, on prend 2 fois plus de temps avec la traduction.
I'm making things very simple because of the translation. It's complicated to express myself.
But it's the idea.
But it's the idea.
Et donc, moi, il me passionne de réfléchir sur cette époque que je trouve vraiment tout aussi effrayante qu'intéressante.
I'm very passionate about thinking on our era, on this period we're living in.
Et ce couple, David-Victoria, est un moyen pour moi de réfléchir à notre monde.
And this couple, David and Victoria, is a mean for me to think on the world we live in
Et à notre avenir.
and on our future.
C'est-à-dire que c'est une petite machine conceptuelle, ce couple David-Victoria,
It's a little conceptual tool
qui génère plein de questions et des conflits et des dialectiques entre deux.
it's a tool which raises many questions and I forgot.
Et quand ils ne font pas l'amour, ils se disputent sur des questions politiques.
And when they don't make love, they're just having some big quarrels, fights on political issues.
Et donc, qui a la vérité? Qui a raison? Est-ce que c'est Victoria? Est-ce que c'est David?
So who has the truth? Who is right? Is it like Victoria or is it David?
Ou c'est une voie du milieu
Or is it just a way in the middle,
qui pourrait s'appeler éventuellement la social-démocratie?
which could be called like the social democracy?
Je n'en sais rien, je ne tranche pas. En tout cas, voilà, c'est le sens de ce couple, c'est d'interroger notre réalité à travers deux conceptions opposées et assez virulentes.
So I don't really know. I'm not positioning myself, but that is the sense, the meaning of this couple to question it.
Parce que c'était très important pour moi de ne pas caricaturer ni David, ni Victoria, ni les positions de David.
Alternate way, there's right or wrong, but both.
Thank you very much. Which some might say is not a paradox at all, but that's a different topic. And then there's in Eric's book, Victoria de Winter, a rational, successful woman who's the head of HR for a multinational corporation. And yet she risks it all by having an affair with a man in Paris. In some cases, even when her husband, who's living in the same city, thinks that she's in Frankfurt. So I want Kerry to come in on this. The conflicts in the books ensue from the fact that the characters are following their hearts rather than their heads, isn't it?
No. Well, this is what we're talking about in the green room, is that Gloria, and the third book, which is Fei Wong's book, are actually three hands of the same story, three sides of the same story. The third book comes out next summer. So in Pao, we have a Chinese man who's come to Jamaica. He becomes a godfather of Chinatown. He then starts this, because the way Pao begins is Gloria comes to Pao to ask him. By this point, she's already a prostitute, and there's been some. Her sister's been beaten up by a white American sailor, and he's the protector of Chinatown. He's a godfather, so she's come to ask for his protection to sort it out. And as a result of that, they end up having a relationship that goes on basically the whole of both of their lives. But obviously, a man in that position doesn't marry a prostitute, so he has to find someone suitable. And the suitable person that he finds is Fei Wong, who's the daughter of a very rich Kingston merchant. So what's interesting about that part is that you can see why Pao wants to marry Fei, because that's him moving up the social structure. What you don't understand in Pao is why Fei would marry Pao. And the suggestion that she's following her heart is funny, really, because actually when you read Fei, you realize that had nothing to do with it at all. And so I think what I'm doing all the time in all the books is saying there's always a different side to the story. These three books cover basically the same time period, 1938 to the early 80s, and you get the story from three different sides, and they're all the truth. That each person's version of what happened, that's the truth. It's not that there's only one truth, and that each person does things, apparently, it seems, for one reason, when actually it's another reason. So, for example, at the very beginning of Pao, Powell's led to believe that it's some kind of bad business deal between the sailor and the prostitute that's resulted in this. And so he believes that. He never actually asks Gloria anything. She never tells him. And actually, that wasn't the truth. There was a bad deal, but it wasn't anything to do with them being prostitutes or him being a sailor. So I think what I'm trying to do all the time is to say nothing is ever what it seems.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the cities that the characters of your novels inhabit. Now, Power is set in Kingston, Jamaica during a time of ferment, which is both social and political. The Victoria system is set principally in Paris, with some interludes where the action, no pun intended, moves to London. And what I'm curious about is whether as novelists, you choose first the setting of the novel. Do you start off saying, I'd like to write a novel which is set in Paris, and then you invent the characters around it? Or do the characters choose or shape the cities that they live in?
Comme je le disais hier, j'ai beaucoup de mal à écrire sur des choses que je ne connais pas, et en particulier les villes.
As I said yesterday, I had a lot of difficulties to write about things I don't know, especially cities.
J'aurais les plus grandes difficultés à situer un roman ailleurs que dans une ville que je connaîtrais très bien.
I would have many difficulties to write a novel in a city that I don't know very well.
Et par exemple, mon projet avec ce roman, qui tourne quand même beaucoup autour de la mondialisation.
And for example, in this project of this novel, which is a lot about globalization,
je voulais le situer à Dubaï.
I wanted to situate it in Dubai.
Parce que je trouvais que cette ville reflétait une certaine conception et idée de notre époque et de ses excès, en tout cas une certaine réalité.
Because I thought Dubai was reflecting like this part of this reality that we live in.
Et donc j'ai fait plusieurs séjours à Dubaï, assez longs.
And I had several stays in Dubai, quite long.
Je me suis même beaucoup documenté. J'ai visité des chantiers de tours à Dubaï.
I made a lot of documentation work, and I visited many construction sites of towers.
Donc je me suis mis en relation avec des directeurs de travaux, comme l'est David dans mon roman.
And I try to add some relations with people who have the same work as David as construction manager.
Et le seul vestige de cette idée que j'avais de situer ce roman à Dubaï,
and the only rest of this idea that I had to locate my book in Dubai,
c'est le centre commercial de la première scène.
Is the commercial mall of the first scene in the book.
Parce que bien évidemment, à Dubaï, les seuls endroits où on peut se promener, ce sont les malls, les centres commerciaux.
Because in Dubai, the only places you can just walk around are the commercial mall.
Et en fait, arrivé au bout de ce premier chapitre, il y avait quelque chose qui ne marchait pas, il y avait quelque chose qui n'était pas vrai.
But at the end of my first chapter, I felt like there was something that didn't work, that wasn't truthful.
En fait, ma phrase mentait.
Indeed, my sentence was lying.
Il y avait quelque chose qui était vraiment faux et qui, en définitive, ne m'intéressait pas.
There was something very fake, and finally it didn't interested me.
Et donc j'ai considéré qu'il était plus simple, de revoir mes ambitions, par rapport à cette question de la mondialisation et d'investir un territoire fascinant mais qui m'était inconnu.
So I decided to change my ambitions and about this location in this book about globalization.
Et donc je l'ai situé à Paris, qui est une ville voilà, que je connais, où je peux inscrire des personnages de romans en ayant le sentiment d'écrire quelque chose qui soit vrai.
And so I located it in Paris, which is a city I know very well, and in which I could just put my characters in some reality.
Et c'est à travers les pages du journal intime de Victoria qui, elle, voyage à travers le monde entier pour son travail.
And it's just through the diary of Victoria, who is traveling all over the world,
Que je peux rendre compte de la dimension planétaire de notre économie d'aujourd'hui.
that I can count like the international dimension of our world, contemporary world.
Thank you. Kerry, in your case, what was your reason for setting your novel in Kingston, Jamaica? And do you think that, I'm going to add in another question, do you think that the city that a character inhabits in some way contributes, let's say, to inherent or latent qualities, like violence, for instance?
The reason these first three books are set in Jamaica, it's because I love Jamaica. I love Jamaica, and in the UK, everybody's heard of Jamaica. Everybody's heard of Bob Marley now. Everybody's heard of Usain Bolt. But a lot of the things that people in the UK anyway have heard about Jamaica are not good things. They're about the violence. They're about ganja. They're all of those things. And I wanted to sort of say something about the path that politically and socially, the path that Jamaica's had, that offered a different kind of explanation apart from, just thinking that we're all just ganja crazy and we're just shooting each other all the time because we can't think of anything better to do. So I wanted to do that. So essentially that's why the book's set in Jamaica. And it's not so much, it is Kingston because that's where I grew up. So I knew that. I didn't grow up in the country, so I set it in the city. And the story isn't so much about cities. I know that this weekend's about cities, but the story is more Jamaica's story and how Jamaica's story is played out in Kingston, because the books are set in Kingston, because that's what I know. In terms of the second part of the question, I think your environment, or whether that environment is a city environment, or whether that's a rural environment, or whatever kind of environment that is, I think that environment does shape who you think you are and what you think is possible. And it shapes, certainly in Gloria, well, in both books, it shapes the opportunities that might be available to you, because you're that particular kind of person in this particular kind of place in that moment in time. And so in Pau, he's a young Chinese immigrant in Jamaica in 1938, who's just been brought there by a stepfather who's the godfather of Chinatown. And right there, Pau's future is kind of set about what he's going to do. He's not, from that position, going to see himself as being a lawyer or an accountant or anything like that. So there's a quote from the beginning of Pau that actually it's from Karl Marx, and I think it kind of sums up. Hang on. I think it kind of sums up what I'm trying to say, I think, a lot of the time. And it says, people make their own history, but they do not make it as they please. They do not make it under self-selecting circumstances, but under circumstances already existing, given and transmitted from the past. And I think that shapes, whether it is a city that you live in or whatever the context is, that shapes it, because it shapes what you think is possible. It shapes the opportunities that are actually there, as well as the opportunities that you imagine to be there. And I think that, and certainly in Gloria, being an African heritage young woman going to Kingston, having run away from a murder in the country, at that point in time, being faced with the choice of being a domestic, which she tries and doesn't work out too well, or in the end she ends up being a prostitute. But the confines, I think, of those decisions are about place and time and circumstances. I don't think that's different in a city than in the country.
Thank you, Kerry. Now, Eric, the sensuality of the Victoria system apparently got a lot of France very hot under the collar. And when you were writing the book, I have a sense that you intended for it to have some shock value. That you probably knew that the book is going to shock some people either in France or around the world. Right from the subject to the treatment of the subject to the cover of the book. If we could play that slide that we have so that you can all see the cover of the Victoria system. So question to you is, was there a planned element of wanting to shock people with this novel?
Non, pas du tout, ça ne m'intéresse absolument pas de choquer. Ce qui m'intéresse, c'est d'aller le plus loin possible dans la vérité des sentiments et d'une relation que j'ai créée par la fiction et par le roman. Il est vrai que ça va assez loin, mais mon intention initiale n'était pas de choquer. Pardon, j'ai complètement oublié. I'm sorry, I totally forgot that I was in Sri Lanka and not in Paris.
No, well, he said, I'm not at all interested in shocking people. That doesn't interest me. And what I'm trying to do is to go as far as possible in the truthness of people's feelings and the relations they can have. And it's true, it can go a little far, but...
Et donc ce que j'ai essayé de faire avec ce livre, c'est de montrer de l'intérieur de la façon la plus précise possible.
What I try to do in this book is to show from inside the more detailed and precise way possible.
La naissance des sentiments entre un homme et une femme et leur évolution.
Like to show the birth of the rising of feelings between a man and a woman and their evolution.
Et comment cette relation peut progresser étape par étape.
And how this relation can evolve like step by step.
Toujours de l'intérieur.
Always from inside.
Par rapport au fantasme et à la façon dont le désir peut être alimenté.
In relation to fantasies and how desire can be nourished, fed.
Lorsque les deux protagonistes sont mariés avec des enfants, une vie de famille.
When like the two characters are married with a family life and children.
Et qu'il est évident et qu'il apparaît à tous les deux.
And it appears obvious for both.
Qu'ils ne sont pas venus chercher dans cette relation.
That they were not looking for in this relationship.
Ce qui pourrait ressembler à ce qu'ils pourraient vivre ou ont vécu dans leur couple et leur relation conjugale.
Like they were not looking for what could look like what they were living in their family life.
Mais en revanche, des choses relevant davantage des sensations fortes, ils recherchent des sensations fortes.
But on the contrary, they are looking for like strong sensations.
Et David découvre que Victoria est passée maître dans sa vie sexuelle, dans l'art de repousser sans cesse les limites.
And David discovers that Victoria became a master in her sexual relationship, and she's going further and further, and she's over something her limits.
Voilà, et donc ça excite bien évidemment beaucoup David, ça l'excite et ça le fascine.
And it excites and fascinates David a lot.
Et donc ils se laissent entraîner tous les deux dans cette fuite en avant en réalité.
And they are carried away in this headlong rush.
qui est un peu comme un reflet ou un écho de la fuite en avant du monde dont je parlais tout à l'heure.
which is a little as an echo to the headlong rush of the contemporary world that we live in.
Et donc je mets dans ce livre en relation, par analogie,
And I put in this book using an analogy,
la façon dont va le monde aujourd'hui sans se poser plus de limites, avec toujours plus d'aspiration au profit, au plus de profit possible.
the world that is evolving without limits and looking for more and more profits.
Et la relation sexuelle et passionnelle et fantasmatique entre David et Victoria, qui aspirent tous les deux à prendre de plus en plus de plaisir et à aller toujours plus loin.
With the sexual and passionate relationship between David and Victoria, who are trying to go further and further.
Parce que la règle d'or du capitalisme financier, c'est qu'on ne gagne jamais assez d'argent.
Because the golden rule of capitalism is that we never earn enough money.
Et quand on rentre dans ce type de relation sexuelle et passionnelle,
And when we start this kind of passionate and relationship,
c'est qu'on n'a jamais assez de plaisir.
is that we never have enough pleasure.
Et c'est un peu comme la drogue, il faut toujours avoir une dose de plus en plus forte à chaque fois pour dépasser le plaisir qu'on a eu la fois précédente.
It's a little like drugs, so you always need to have some bigger doses to have some
More pleasure than before. Et voilà, donc c'est ça qui m'intéressait de faire et pas de choquer, bien sûr.
So I didn't intend to shock, but I was trying to do what I just told.
Et d'ailleurs, ce livre a choqué peu de personnes.
And indeed, this book shocked very few people.
Thank you very much, Eric. This is a brilliant moment.
En revanche, on m'a beaucoup dit que ce livre avait relancé la vie sexuelle des couples et qu'il était très excitant, qu'il donnait envie de faire l'amour.
But on the contrary, many people told me that this book did help their marital life and made them want to make love.
This is a brilliant moment to hand over to the audience for questions. If you have a question, put up your hand, identify yourself, keep the question short, and if both the questions and the responses are short, we might even do 2 or 3. Any questions in the audience? For Kerry Young about Gloria and Pau, and for Eric Reinhardt about the Victoria system. Unless, of course, all of you are consumed with the idea of making love already. And yes, please.
I have a question for Eric. Why did you make the?
Hello, Jonathan.
Why did you make the object of David's erotic obsession English? I ask this because the English think that the French are the most erotic nation in the world, and the French think that the English know nothing at all about sex. So it's to me it seems a strange choice.
J'adore les Anglaises, elles m'ont toujours très attiré.
I love English women. I've always been very attracted to them.
À chaque fois que je vais à Londres, je tombe amoureux à peu près tous les quarts d'heure.
Every time I'm going to London, I'm falling in love every quarters.
Je trouve et par ailleurs, vous n'êtes pas sans savoir que l'Angleterre est quand même un pays assez libéral.
But moreover, like England, you know, is a very liberal country.
Et donc voilà, permettez d'avoir à la fois la dimension fantasmatique et puis Londres qui est une place financière importante en Europe et une plaque tournante du libéralisme économique.
London is a financial center of the world, and so it was helping me to talk about these issues.
Any other questions? We probably have time for one quick question. Good. If not, thank you very much, Kerry Young and Eric Reinhardt.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to end with two quotes about their books, which I think might inspire you to read them. About the Victoria system, Lemont says, ambitious, arresting, accomplished, complex, sensual, sexual, intriguing, heady. Good enough reasons to pick up the book. And about Pau, the Observer says, a blindingly good read, both for its mesmeric storytelling and the quality of its prose. Having read the books of both these authors, I can gladly second that. So go out and buy copies of Pau, Gloria, and the Victoria System. Ladies and gentlemen, Kerry Young and Eric Reinhardt, a very big round of applause for them.
Yeah, thank you.
And also a round of applause for Isa Ponchon for working so hard with the French to English translations. Thank you.
Vamos, vamos.